Hello, AP Psychers, and welcome to Galusha's Corner. We are here for 7.3 Theories of Emotion. It's a big one for the AP exam. They will oftentimes circle back to this. I know it looks confusing on the outside, but we can do some things to really make this make a lot of sense to you. So we're looking at why you have emotions. It would make sense that we would start with first, what are emotions? So emotions are a feeling such as happiness, sadness, anger, disgust, surprise, and fear. Notice I used all the primary emotions there. That's absolutely where Pixar decided to bring bring all of these together. Fear kind of using both surprise and fear for these characters. Fantastic movie, does a great job with emotions. Emotions, we want to make sure that we understand, do involve three things. So they involve a bodily reaction. So your body reacts, like maybe your heart starts to race. Like see how anger here is having a bodily reaction with how he gets heated. Sadness had her bodily reaction when she would just be very lethargic. You have expressive behaviors. Okay, here we see all of the emotions. Disgust having a facial feature. Same thing with fear, big eyes, joy with her nice big smile, sadness, downturned, everything in her facial structure, anger showing his teeth, furrowing his brow. The reason that we are able to quickly see all of these things is because we are used to these expressive behaviors in body language and in facial features. And then finally, an emotion is going to have a cognition. It's going to have a thought that goes along with it. So we have those three things. Now let's go ahead and dissect those elements of emotions before we try to explain what actually causes an emotion. So we do have to understand that anything here, before we even understand these three elements, starts with some kind of a stimulus. So if I see a bear, that's going to cause an emotional reaction. If I get an angry text from a significant other, that's going to cause an emotional reaction. So just, we're going to talk about stimuluses today. Don't get freaked out by it. It's any object or event that causes a response in an organism. It can be external, but sometimes I might have a thought that might stimulate me to have an emotion too. So it can be internal. After exposure to a stimulus, usually external, sensory signals are transmitted to the thalamus. So if I see a bear, I get a text, it goes into my nervous system. It goes to this place in my brain called the thalamus, right there at the top of my brainstem. And the thalamus really acts as a routing center for your brain. It takes in sensory information and it sends it to the right location. In this instance, your thalamus is going to send it to two locations. The amygdala, which is going to be a center of emotional processing, mostly for fear, and your brain cortex. They're being more about thought and analysis. So the amygdala is going to control the body's reaction because it's going to get you ready to flee or fight because it's fear and danger center. And the brain cortex is going to take care of the thinking part of this. So we get a stimulus, we immediately start to see that body reaction, that thinking reaction, but that's the neural network for how that is formed. It's important for us to note that the bodily reactions are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Now, the autonomic nervous system, or the ANS, is a division of two nervous system things. These are part of your neurons, okay? They're going to work to do certain things in your body. And this one here is going to get us ready to deal with times of crisis. It makes an awful lot of sense that this system, called the sympathetic nervous system, is really there to immediately respond to a threat. You see a bear coming in, your thalamus sends it right to this information to your amygdala. Your amygdala immediately says warning and tells the thalamus to let the rest of the body do what's called the sympathetic nervous system. So your pupils will dilate. You'll decrease salivation because you don't have to worry about digesting things right now. You're going to perspire in your skin. You're going to increase your respiration. You're going to accelerate your heart rate. You're going to stop digestion because you don't have to worry about spending time on that. You're going to secrete stress hormones. It's going to get you ready to go ahead and flee or fight. So you can see that emotions such as fear and anger, where they're going to really stimulate the amygdala, are definitely going to fire off this sympathetic nervous system almost as a evolutionary reaction. You have another one, don't worry, that eventually calms you down, which is good. And so these are going to be some of the bodily reactions that you're going to see anytime we get excited or angry. And that's going to come really from the amygdala. You have expressive behaviors. So we'll talk about this a little more as we go through, but all of your primary emotions have facial features that really go along with that. Here you see the downturned brow and the squared off mouth, signs of anger. You see that upturned nose here as a sign of disgust. Here we have some surprise and fear, with the mouth pulled back at the edges and the eyes wide. So that is fear. You see a little bit of happiness here with a smile, and you get a little bit of sadness and surprise here with the O-shaped and with the kind of downturned facial features. So we all have these expressive behaviors that we can see. We also have cognitions. Now, cognitions may be labeling something cognitively, like consciously knowing that you're like, oh, I'm afraid of that. Or it could occur automatically as we mentally immediately file something into, is this a threat or is this not a threat? So it can be conscious or unconscious that we're making these cognitions. Okay. The last two things we have to understand is the sensory input can get routed two ways. Remember, like I said, it can go to your amygdala immediately, or it can go to your cerebral cortex. We call the high road the cognitions part, where the stimulus goes to the thalamus and then goes to the brain's cortex. That's the high road. It's going to have you thought about it. It's higher on the brain, actually, physically. So that's when you're going to think about it. Then it might send it to the amygdala if you need to get angry. But it's going to go through that cerebral cortex first. The low road is when the stimulus goes right from the thalamus right to the amygdala and then right back to the thalamus to activate your SNS. That's the low road. That's your bodily reactions. That's going to be some more of your basic emotions. Okay, now we've got all the players. We've got body reactions, we've got facial features and expressions, and we've got cognitions. We also know the neural route that all of this stuff follows. Now we can start to put it all together. That's a picture of the high road, in the low road, if you want to see. So high road, again, going into the thalamus, over to the visual cortex for a little processing, here to the cerebral cortex, the prefrontal cortex here to let you think about it, and then back to the amygdala if we need to. Low road, just boom, thalamus, amygdala, go, act, fear, anger, aggression, those quick emotions that help us survive. So here, can you identify the three parts of emotion? Well, we've got physiological arousal. I bet their hearts are beating faster, right? They've just won a national championship, maybe. Their expressive behavior, we got like some smiles here, maybe some crinkling at the corners of the eyes, also a facial feature expression of smiles. And their conscious experience, they realize maybe they have won a national championship and now they are happy and excited. They kind of think about all the work they put into this and what this milestone actually means. So really for this 7-3, we have to understand what causes emotions. Does your bodily reaction cause them? Do your thoughts cause them? And what I'd like to start is the two opposite theories, one by the James Longa theory and one by the cognitive appraisal or Lazarus theory. So here on James Longa theory, emotions are caused by our bodies having a reaction to a stimulus. Sorry for the typo there, for our bodies having a reaction to a stimulus. So you have a stimulus, bear, you have a bodily reaction, heart starts to beat faster, pupils dilate, breathing increases. And because of that, the James Longa theory says that causes the emotion. So James Longa theory, very easy. It's just that emotions are caused by our body reaction, by that sympathetic nervous system, by the signal going into the thalamus to the amygdala and causing this emotional reaction. Cognitive appraisal theory is going to be the exact opposite. So it's going to say that emotions are caused by our thinking, by our appraisal. So you get a stimulus, you think about that stimulus, and then you go ahead and you have an emotion. Here, if you've ever gotten a text from someone, you read it, and the more you thought about it, the more angry you got at the text. That's a good example of cognitive appraisal theory. Then there's Scatcher's two-factor theory. This should now be easy because all we're going to do is take the James Longa theory and the cognitive appraisal theory and add them together. So because it's two factors are causing an emotion. So factor number one is bodily reaction is going to happen. And then factor number two, you're going to think about that bodily reaction. And then you're going to label the emotion based upon that. Now, this really makes sense because we can have a bodily reaction to a spider And maybe I'll think about this and be like, oh, I'm terrified of spiders. Spiders can be poisonous, and therefore we'll have the expression of fear. But you can have bodily reactions for other things. You can have a bodily reaction when you see your crush, and that bodily reaction can look an awful lot like that of reacting to a spider. Except here you might interpret it much differently and be like, oh, I'm not afraid. I'm experiencing joy and excitement. So the two-factor theory allows us to label that bodily reaction differently and therefore experience a different emotion. So definitely, I think this is a superior theory to the James Longer or cognitive appraisal because it's taking both into effect as the reasons for why we have an emotion. Now, we do have the Canonbard theory. And this one I don't want you to get too worried about. It was really more contextually important. It came out right after the James Longer theory came out, and it really was geared to go against what the James Longer theory was saying. So the James Longer theory is saying that your bodies cause an emotion. So the Canonbard theory is like, no, I don't agree. It says that your body does not cause the emotion, that they happen simultaneously and are not connected. Notice that I have highlighted not connected there, though. That is the key thing for the Canonbard theory. You want to say that a body reaction happens in result to a stimulus. So does the emotion appraisal happen, but they're not connected. So your thalamus is going to send the signal to your amygdala into your bodily your amygdala, which causes the bodily reaction, and the cerebral cortex. So that low and that high road. But Canonbard's big contribution is that it is arguing that those two are not connected at all in any way, much unlike what we just heard from the two-factor theory, where they were both connected in causing an emotion. This is just arguing. All you want to say for this one is that they are not connected. Basically, it says it follows the low and high roads, but one does not cause the other. They happen simultaneously and not. If I said not connected enough, I'm going to say it one more time. They're not connected. That's the key thing for Canonbard. This next theory is just making a note saying that, hey, the fear-provoking stimuli follow the low road. So fear and anger stimuli for Ladue's theory here follows the low road, thalamus to the amygdala. This is an easy theory now if you understand this. So thalamus to the amygdala causes the immediate body reaction. And the argument here is that fear-provoking stimuli follow this road. So let's go over them again. Okay, the James Longer theory, body causes the emotion. Canonbard, body reaction and emotional awareness happen simultaneously but independently. Cognitive appraisal, thinking causes emotion. Two-factor theory, body and thinking causes emotion. And finally, Ladue theory is that fear-provoking stimuli travel the low road. And that really is our summary of the theories of emotions. We have primary emotions. Those are happiness, sadness, disgust, fear, anger, and surprise. They are found across all cultures. So there's genetic elements of these. And in fact, they have a facial expression that's associated with it across all cultures. And they can also be seen in primates. See the O face here and the wider eyes. Then we have surprise. We have the crinkling of the eyes here and the pullback upturn of the mouth. There we get some happiness. I'm going to move myself over here. We got furrowed brow, squared off features for anger. So you can see very, very, very similar facial expressions for the things. We have the pulled back lips and the wider eyes for fear. We got some upturned nose here for some anger and disgust in this primate. So primary emotions are going to be across cultures and baked into primates as well, with facial expressions that are same across all cultures, showing a genetic link to these primary emotions. However, just because we genetically have all of these primary emotions doesn't mean that we feel that we can show these. And that's display rules. So display rules are social norms that distinguish how one should express their emotions in any given context. It's culturally prescribed rules that people learn early on in their lives by interacting with other people. So one of our display rules in our misogynistic society, in our patriarchy, is that boys don't cry. And we really try to stifle male displays of emotions. Those are our display rules. Hopefully, I would hope that in taking this class, you'd work against that and allow males to be fully functioning emotional beings. But unfortunately, in our society, that's a display rule. And it's different in other societies. Maybe a display rule in a collectivistic society might be a little more constrained, where you tend to have more display rules. So I had a wonderful student that was from Japan a couple of years ago, talking about how it was very rude to ever show disgust. That would not be something that you would show as a facial feature. And in fact, oftentimes in public, not smiling, showing your teeth, that display rule, that it was too much happiness show, and being a little more concerned about the people around you. So those display rules being different in different cultures, and they're really just social norms, things you kind of know that you're supposed to do. Micro expressions are, however, when those emotions do slip out onto our faces for a fraction of a second. You actually see some Secret Service agents that are trained in micro expressions along with FBI agents to be able to read emotions at a quicker level. But those that do show that we have it genetically baked in, and even those display rules can kind of hold them in, they do kind of seep out onto our faces. There are a couple of really important studies that I think you guys should include on your notes. For the James Longa theory, note that those with high spinal cord injuries experience less intense emotions than those with low spinal cord injuries. So if I am paralyzed from my waist down, I still feel more of my body, so I have a more rich emotional experience. If I'm paralyzed from the neck down, I feel less of my body and have a less intense emotional experience. That's in keeping with the fact that the body has a major effect for causing emotions. You should also know that facial feedback is a thing. As annoying as this sounds, if you turn that frown upside down, your muscles in your face are giving back information to your body, which does, in part, a little bit change mood. So facial feedback is the facial structure, the expression you have, going ahead and changing the emotion a little bit. And that's an example of how the body causes emotion, or the James Longa theory. Very, very important study with spillover effect, the two-factor theory, when they had college students that were given epinephrine to create a bodily reaction, and they were put in a waiting room. Some were put in a waiting room with someone who was angry, and those people ended up using the arousal, looking at the person who was angry, thinking about being angry, and becoming angry. So two factors. They had the bodily arousal, that was the epinephrine, and they had the actor in there that was acting angry, so they ended up feeling angry. They did the same thing with another group that was in a waiting room. They had the epinephrine, so they had the bodily arousal. This time, the actor was acting excited, and guess what? That group felt excited as well, showing that your cognitive label can go ahead and change that emotional experience. Okay, my friends, that is a quick run through 7.3 and the different theories of emotions. And we will take a look at 7.4 stress and coping when we come together next. Take care.